Gil here at Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser, and in this week's episode we're going to be showing how to replace the glass in one of your hatches. Good morning, everybody. I was starting to take my time working on these hatches, and yesterday we were kind of having lunch and just hanging out with some of the marina neighbors, and I was slowly working on this, and somebody says, hey, you think you'll have all that done before it rains tomorrow? So I kind of kicked it in a little bit of high gear. This is a secondary hatch. This is the forward hatch on the Gulf Star. You can see it's significantly larger, and in this particular case I don't believe that my issue is actually leaking below the frame like on the previous one you saw in this video we finished rebedding. I believe this one was actually coming in around the actual Lexan. So what I did, and I didn't film it all yesterday, was come out here and I took this hatch, took the lid off, and used a utility knife and just ran around the perimeter of the lens and the perimeter of the frame itself. Once you do that, you can push this out. You know, it takes a little bit of a prying. I use those paint scrapers I mentioned before. I love those things. So I've got my polycarbonate here, and I did do an initial pass at cleaning it up. Basically just taking a thick scraper and scraping along the edge of this. I also have taken at least one round with acetone and cleaned the frame at one point already. I'm going to come back and do a slight cleaning again with another layer of acetone, make sure I get the remaining residual off of here. I also brought a couple pieces of sandpaper. If there's any places where it's a little bit corroded, I'm going to sand it smooth. If you have an anodized aluminum frame, you want to be very cautious doing that. You do not want to sand it, but this one does not appear to be. So I will do a very light sand on the inside of this frame where the sealant will go. This glass is a little bit crazed, but I'm going to go ahead and reuse it anyway. I keep saying the word glass. It's truly a polycarbonate. It's either the polycarbonate or an acrylic. That's likely what the two different surfaces would be. But that stuff heats up. It sits on the deck, the sun heats it up, the frame gets it hot, you get water to splash, and what happens is these little tiny hairline cracks that form in the inner surface of that thing. Over time, it can weaken it. This is a pretty good thick one. I'm not worried about being weakened at this point, so I'm gonna put the same one back in just because if it's gonna rain, I don't have time to wait for a new one to be cut, at least not today. I'll maybe think about it down the road. These plastic lenses usually come in two different varieties. They are either acrylic or they are polycarbonate. Polycarbonate goes by the brand name Lexan oftentimes. Acrylic goes by the brand name plexiglass oftentimes. The difference between the two, polycarbonate is a little bit stronger. Lexan is less expensive, and it is a clearer surface. It will last a little longer from a clearness perspective, but it's not as tough. So on a hatch of this size, polycarbonate would probably be a stronger suggestion or solution. You can go buy this. You can't usually buy it at the local hardware store. You might have to go to a plastic shop and have it purchased, but it's pretty easy to cut and make new lenses with just a table saw or bandsaw or jigsaw and a high-speed router. You can use the old lens that comes out of it as a template to route the new one in the same shape, get these same curves into it. I'm not going to be doing that. But let's talk a little bit about adhesives. Adhesives basically come into three different sort of flavors. There is polysulfides, which are really, really good, strong bonds. They remain flexible. However, it does tend to break down the strength of plastic. So if you are bonding any two surfaces, and one of those surfaces is plastic, and it's above the waterline, you should not use a polysulfide. Polysulfide can be used below the waterline. So if you think about through hull fittings and whatnot that are plastic, it's typically, I think it's called Marlar or Marlon or whatever it is. Those do not have the same plastic characteristics, and polysulfides don't break them down. But polysulfide's not what we want to use here. The next one is polyurethane. And a polyurethane, and we keep saying sealant, but we should probably call it an adhesive. These are really adhesives. So a polyurethane adhesive is relatively permanent, and I say that. I know that each brand sells one that's not as heavy duty, a 5200 versus 4200, for example. But at the end of the day, they are very, very solid, and they're likely not coming apart. So these are really good for hull to deck joints and things like that. But something like this, well, let's be realistic. You're going to be rebedding hatches every 6 to 8 years, likely. That's not the solution you want here. Silicone is actually probably one of the best sealants. The problem is it doesn't have a good adhesion quality. So the ideal material for adhering this together is going to be a product that uses a combination of polyurethane and silicone. Boat Life, for example, has a product like this. You can utilize that. It gives you the adhesion qualities of polyurethane. It gives you the sealing qualities and the flexible qualities of silicone. So that's what we're going to be putting in here. I believe I actually have some Boat Life down below, so I'll be putting that on here. But hopefully that's helpful. That's a little bit about what kind of sealant you should use for putting a new lens in these. And this is not a bad job. And literally you can do this in a few hours, 4 to 5 hours in a given day, sort of taking your time, drinking your coffee. I'm breaking it up between days just because I'm working during the day, so I'm trying to do some between 6 or 7:30 in the morning, and then a little bit again in the evening. Let's finish getting this cleaned up. See, this is the section where I got more of it on here yesterday than I intended to. Gotta really buff that up a little bit.
My glass turned upside down so I can put it right back in place as I need it to. I've got my Life Seal in my tube. Life Seal only comes in clear or black. There is a Life Caulk and there is a Life Seal. It's very important that you use Life Seal. Life Seal is the polyurethane silicone combination. Life Caulk is the polysulfide, and it is not to be used with plastics. There we go. That's what we're wanting to see. All right. So at least now I see how quick this is going to come out. It lets me sort of prepare here. All right.
We just want to run a nice thick bead along the base of where the glass will seal against the frame.
Now, this is not a race by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm just taking it nice and slow. So, here's my next move. We're going to take this piece and we are going to set it right down in here. I'm doing my best to get it lined up correctly, but I may have to adjust it slightly. Wow.
So you can see I cut the tip fairly thin so that I could get the edge of the tip down between the glass and the frame. And I'm holding it a little bit low and at an angle and continuing to inject the sealant and adhesive down into the slot. And I want it to actually rise up above it. It's going to be pretty easy to trim later with a razor blade. So the idea here is you want to make sure that you get a good solid coat of this stuff all the way down from the bottom of the frame where we started up to the top and protruding over by just a little bit. So we'll close this up and check on it tomorrow after it dries.
Alright, so just wrapped up doing the hatch. Decided to come and do it at the storage shed and put some plastic over the opening of the boat, right? Just because it looked like it was going to pour. And as I started researching, this takes a good full 24 hours to cure, and I just didn't want to chance it being on the boat, having to cover it while it was still wet or something. So, you know, I got it sealed up with some tarp right now. It looks crappy, but hey, at least we got this moving.
All right, 24 hours later, let's check on it.
We're back in the storage shed. It's raining pretty hard, so kind of like to get this back on the boat. But I'm going to show it this close. You can kind of see here the sealant, and again, it's risen up above the level, and that's exactly what I want. And I'll show you why. What we're going to do is we're going to take a knife, and we're going to slowly cut this just even with that glass. And the goal here is to keep that nice and smooth right here. That's exactly what we want to do. So.
Well, I'm hoping you found that useful. At this point, it was really just a matter of putting the hatch back on and popping the pin back in the hinge. The beauty of that is it's not leaking anymore, so it's been a nice little fix. Sorry for the way we had to break up the video. It started pouring down rain. The threat of rain had me more worried about the repair than the videos. And then there was a couple of times when I got over to the storage shed, kind of between errands to check on things. And I had my cell phone with me instead of the camera, so I apologize for some of that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I really do hope everybody understands the different types of sealant. It's not to say one is better or worse than the other. I know there are a lot of opinions about sealants and adhesives out there. for this job, given the material we had, this was absolutely the right choice for us. I know there are people that use a lot of other alternate solutions. When we first bought the Gulf Star, everything was bedded just with silicone, and it was sealed. The problem was, you know, we'd sail for 3 months and everything was leaking because that silicone just wouldn't adhere very well. So this Life Seal has definitely been a godsend for us. We've been using it for 5 or 6 years, but it is important to note, and I want to highlight it again, there is something called Life Caulk and there is something called Life Seal. The packages look almost identical. It's a bright yellow tube. You can buy it in your marine chandlery, but it is different. Life Caulk is a polysulfide, probably great for a hull deck joint or even bonding 2 pieces of teak together on a teak deck. Not exactly what you want for hatches. It's just something that, 1, you probably won't get off of there, and 2, it actually will corrode plastic, so it's not compatible with plastics. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please do give it a like, give it a subscribe, share it with your friends if you like it, and next week we will finish up the hatch. There's been a little bit of a delay. I mentioned all the rain. That was certainly a bit of a delay there, and I didn't want to continue doing any more epoxy work and sealing that while we had the rain in the forecast, so I needed a couple of days here. So wanted to put this one up there first because I was able to do the repair in the storage shed. Thanks, y'all. Safe sailing.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even Tumblr. Please take a moment and go over to our website at svdreamchaser.com to download free resources for cruising and how-to projects. Get your thumbs and mouses ready. We also have a couple of links right on the screen for some other playlists and videos that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, fellow dreamers.